But I am absolutely thrilled to have with us on the show right now from Arizona, and actually join us tonight from Mesa, Arizona, where he's getting ready to talk to a Tea Party group. Congressman Paul Gozer. Congressman, how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing well, Cam. How about yourself?
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on the show this evening.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, today we finally heard the news. I think a lot of us have been expecting for some time, given the lack of cooperation from the Department of Justice. A vote scheduled for next Tuesday in the House Oversight Committee to hold the Attorney General in contempt of Congress. What are your thoughts, Congressman, now that your colleague, Representative Issa, and Speaker Boehner have, basically said, look, Eric Holder has until next Tuesday to comply. He's out of time.
I like their time frame. I like what they did, and no one realized what Congressman Issa had, and the mole inside the DOJ that allowed him to deliver, the affidavits on the wiretap. So now he's got him pulled about lying again.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I was really interested in a couple of these stories. It almost seems like we're seeing a narrative from the administration almost trying to drive a wedge between leadership and folks like yourself and Representative Issa and, those who have been pursuing Operation Fast and Furious. You saw the New York Times story last week from Charlie Savage that claimed there were talks between Speaker Boehner's office and the Attorney General's office. Speaker Boehner denied that, and as it turns out, Charlie Savage didn't even talk to the Speaker's office before he wrote that story. So apparently that was coming out of DOJ. Now we've got this Politico story quoting unnamed Republican aides, and I believe one unnamed Republican lawmaker is saying, look, nobody really wants to talk about Fast and Furious. We just want to we want a quiet summer and talk about the economy. I've got to ask, Representative, have any of your colleagues, any of your fellow Republicans come up to you and said, Paul, why are you talking about this? Why don't you just drop this subject?
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, more and more people are jumping on our resolution of no confidence, Cam, coming back up and saying, you were right all along. In fact, more and more people are calling us and telling us, thank God we're pursuing this and pushing this forward. So it's quite the opposite, Cam.
All right. And is there, to the best of your knowledge, is there any truth to this, the meme that's being put out there that leadership is not behind this?
I don't think so at all. I know in talking with leadership about our resolution, they were very, very positive about it. So I don't know where people are getting their stuff, but outside of the NRA, Cam, as you know, I'm a great fan. Mainstream media has been trying to dispel all sorts of rumors like you outlined, trying to get America not to look.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, today, Congressman, was really one of the first days that the media couldn't ignore this story. I mean, they have ignored appearances by the Attorney General before the Oversight Committee. Not a word written in the Washington Post, not a second of airtime on NBC or ABC or CNN. Today, this was, a big enough development that they couldn't ignore it. And I'm glad to see that. I hope that from now on, the mainstream media treats this like the story that it is. They don't buy into the Obama administration defense that this is just a partisan political witch hunt and not worthy of coverage, because at the end of the day, I know you just want some answers.
Oh, absolutely. And this is about what's right and wrong, Cam. We've talked about this before. How egregious is it that a government puts guns in the hands of criminals, doesn't track them, doesn't do proper property or surveillance and tracking mechanisms, and they intentionally lose them? Now, what was the whole case of that whole deal? And then we intermix all the different details so that we try to scurry the actual findings and resolve. We actually confiscate and cover up when Mexico tries to ask about it because they're not included in it. Mm-hmm. And then we get a border agent who actually ends up dying and costing his life. Plus, even the Attorney General's own words have said that these guns will show up at crime scenes throughout the United States, particularly in the Southwest, particularly here in Arizona. So we've got to deal with the consequences of this. That's egregious. That's an egregious attempt by the federal government, by a government on its people.
Absolutely. Congressman, I got to tell you, one of the things, as we talk about the lack of coverage, I've been surprised at how little coverage Fast and Furious has received, even in the local Arizona media. Now, I know the Arizona Republic did a very big Sunday story a few months ago, and it was a good one. There has been some coverage, but I think you'd have to say it's been fairly sporadic. Are the people in your district, are they still getting information via, alternative forms of media, and are they aware, and are they angry about Fast and Furious?
They're very angry. Rural Arizona is very angry. In fact, I met with the son of the slain rancher, Mr. Krenz, and they're very upset. They continue to ask for questions and answers, questions and answers to what transpired, who gave the authorization. They're some of the loudest holders of the comments. And to go back to the Arizona Republic with no ill respect due, but when I had an editorial done with them, they asked me the whole point of Fast and Furious. My comment was about taking away Second Amendment rights and putting new gun laws on the table, and I was hammered for it, Cam. And look at what's happening. This was actually part of that scheme. That's the only reasonable assay that you can actually come out of this with talking about.
Well, absolutely. Again, we weren't supposed to know about Fast and Furious. We were never supposed to find out that this operation took place. Everything, even the indictments were under seal. The reason why we found out about this was Brian Terry was killed, and ATF agents who were disgusted by Fast and Furious started speaking out. Otherwise, we never would have known. And, I think it was that same Politico story I mentioned earlier. They described this as there were errors in tracking the guns, which both sides acknowledged was problematic, or something like that. There weren't errors in tracking these firearms. There was no exactly. There was no way to.
Agents were told to stand down from tracking. Actually told to stand down. And the superiors.
And again, Representative, one of the things that has been so infuriating watching the Attorney General go and speak to you guys is that there's never a definitive answer. I know it was asked again last week. So who authorized this? And again, we don't know. When it comes to those wiretap applications, the Attorney General said, well, look, we don't actually read the applications. Someone writes a summary. We read the summary, and then we approve the application based on the summary. Well, who wrote the summary? And did they include the information about gun walking in these summaries?
Well, they have to. And, I sat back, Cam. I took the special intention to go back and talk to one of the U.S. attorneys, that's a sitting member of Congress. And I said, is this what exactly transpires? He goes, absolutely not. When you're signing off on this, you're understanding why you're going to a higher level of surveillance that's not normally given. And you are responsible for understanding why you're signing off on that. And the details, the little pieces of affidavits that we've seen, I haven't seen them, but they've been released, shows that, once again, the Attorney General has now misled and lied Congress that higher authority in the DOJ actually knew about this. Lanny Brewer's indicated over and over, Jason Weinstein, and we've been knowing this about over and over again. And what America wants is they want justice, and they want, when somebody does something egregiously wrong, you're put on administrative leave, just like everybody else in America. That hasn't even happened.
No, in fact, I mean, I know Eric Holder said people have been disciplined, and there have been consequences to this. As far as I know, Representative, every transfer, and that's what it's been either a lateral move or it could be considered a promotion for the people involved with Fast and Furious, with the exception of the whistleblowers who came forward. They've actually been punished.
And I would also say Dennis Burke. They're trying to pretend that he's the fall guy.
Right.
We know that he did not. Wasn't the higher authority on this. We knew it came from Washington D.C.
Well, absolutely, and again, you talk about the anti-gun attitudes here. Dennis Burke was one of the guys behind the Clinton gun ban, the semi-auto ban in the 1990s, as was Eric Holder.
Yep.
And we once again heard the Attorney General not too long ago questioned by your colleague Jerry Connolly, who, full disclosure, happens to be my congressman. Representative Connolly asked him, do you support a new ban? And he said, yes, I do. So, again, it is the position of this administration that commonly owned firearms should be banned. It's just that they know that they don't have the votes in Congress to do it right now.
Absolutely, and that's why I said over and over again, which 4 states got new gun regulations without going through Congress? The answer is Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. When you go buy a long gun, you got more paperwork to have to fill out in registry before you can buy that long gun. That's exactly what they wanted, Cam.
Yeah.
And I find that just absolutely offensive.
I do too. And and again, I can't help but wonder, Representative, what else they really would have pushed for had this operation never been disclosed. I think that they would have been pushing for that semi-auto ban. I think we would have heard these horror stories about hundreds of guns being trafficked at a time from gun stores in Arizona, ending up in the hands of the Sinaloa cartel, and they just never would have explained, or they never would have informed us that they let it happen.
They were building a process to get right at them. And when you go back to election processes and when you listen to the cabinet level people from Eric Holder to Hillary Clinton to this president, they knew about the carnage going in Mexico. They knew about this. They knew about the Operation Wide Receiver and its consequences before they even did this. And Eric Holder, and I want to remind everybody, the timeline is so important on this, that in April of 2009, he talks that he's implementing an aggressive campaign on gun running, folks. You talk about gun running and aggressive, here you go. And that he gets the support. He's been working with Janet Napolitano and the administration. And then a week later, the president comes out with false facts and figures that says that 90% of all guns confiscated at crime scenes come from America. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? We're the only ones that have serial marks so that you can be recognized, that you can actually have some identification. But they're less than 17% of all the weapons that are ever received or found or confiscated at crime scenes. But we're the ones that you can actually figure out what their serial mark and where they came from is. The majority are coming from China, Latin America, and Africa.
Yes, and again, we've talked about this before. The really misleading statements about these firearms recovered in Mexico. Now, I want to ask you about something else, Representative. Sure. Last week, when Eric Holder testified, he mentioned that the White House. He had talked with David Axelrod about crafting their response to the investigation into the scandal. David Axelrod over the weekend was on CNN and said that he really hadn't talked to Eric Holder. He really hadn't had any political conversations. It seems like one of these two individuals is not telling the truth. One of them made their statements before Congress, which could be problematic.
Absolutely, and then you saw Axelrod's great performance this weekend about the president's blunders about that the private sector in America is doing just fine, and it was but that's all, folks.
Yes. So, again, I think it's going to be a very interesting week, Congressman. I hope that you'll be able to join us perhaps next Tuesday after the vote is held. We'll let you get to your speech. Thank you so much for coming on the program tonight, and look forward to talking again very soon.
Jan, thank you very much, and thank you again for all that you've done in keeping this in the spotlight. People really admire what you've done and what NRA has done, and thank you for standing up for our Second Amendment rights. They may be the most important rights we have because they enforce the ability for us to have the rest.
Congressman, thank you so much for your kind words, sir. Look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks again, Cam.